Raskin turned a routine hearing into a devastating indictment of selective justice.
State of Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McKinney, I want to extend to you my sympathy for your horrible loss. As a father who lost a son who was a year younger than your son, I cannot know your pain or your experience, but I know you live with it every day, and my heart goes out to you. Ms. McKinney and Mr. Morrow, in fact, all of the witnesses have underscored the importance, as Mr. Morrow put it, I think, of voicing support for the police. And we voted to create a plaque. I mean, it wasn't a memorial fund for anyone. It wasn't money to go to families, but at least it was a plaque to honor the work of the officers who defended us with their lives. And it reads, "On behalf of a grateful Congress, this plaque honors the extraordinary individuals who bravely protected and defended this symbol of democracy on January 6, 2021. Their heroism will never be forgotten." It was supposed to have been put up in the Capitol 2 years ago. It has still not been put up, and I thought I would start with an easy one, just a yes or no question. Would you agree that Speaker Johnson should put this plaque up as provided for in federal law? Dr. Levine, I can start with you.
Yes.
Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Mr. Morrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Mango?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I want to go to just quickly back to the question of the pardons, because it seems like our soft on crime president is so beholden to the MAGA militia that he's actually pardoned some of the people he already pardoned because they've gotten back in trouble. As I was reading the long list of crimes they've already engaged in, he recently pardoned a woman who was separately convicted of threatening to shoot FBI agents who were investigating a tip that she may have been at the Capitol, and she threatened to shoot them. And then he pardoned another insurrectionist from Kentucky who'd been arrested for illegally possessing 6 firearms and 4,800 rounds of ammunition. And just question to you, Dr. Levine, what message is sent by these repeated pardons for people who just participated in the insurrection surrounding the attempted overthrow of the 2020 presidential election?
I think the best way to answer that is to quote Chairman Van Drew, who said in his opening remarks, "When you take away consequences, you get chaos."
Okay, and Mr. Moore, let me come back to you, because you invoked the broken windows thesis by James Q. Wilson. Piqued my ears. He was my professor when I was in school, so I was always, I wrote a paper about it. I was always fascinated by it. And also, we had a lot of broken windows here on January 6, 2021, in addition to a lot of broken bones. And I wonder, I read that long list, I won't go through the whole thing again, but of crimes that have been committed since the pardons took place by people who were pardoned, including terroristic threats, home invasion, burglary, vandalism, theft, not offenses directed at politicians. I'm afraid the chairman misunderstood my point. He seemed to think that I was talking about these crimes being directed just at politicians. I'm talking about these being common crimes that were committed by people who were pardoned, people going out and just robbing other people's houses, having nothing to do with politics. But my question for you on broken windows, are you surprised that people who were given the remarkable, extraordinary, almost unheard of privilege of a presidential pardon quickly going back out on the road and doing things like burglary, vandalism, theft, home invasion, terroristic threats? And what does that say in the context of broken windows?
All I would say relative to January 6th is that if we're going to speak about the conditions in our cities, I'm hearing a great deal about January 6th. I'm hearing a tremendous amount about Donald Trump. But that's not what you feel on the street. And January 6th, nobody supports, certainly I don't. Nobody wants to see people in Viking horns walking around inside our Capitol behaving that way. I can't.
Okay, I'm not going to reclaim my time.
I'm not going to excuse anything.
I'm sorry,
that
you would
went on.
invoke James Q. Wilson about the broken windows hypothesis, which is that if
would you apply it? Would you apply it?
Mr. Chairman, will you direct him to
apply it to the
I've reclaimed my time. I've reclaimed my time. You might not understand the rules here, but we have
Mr. Morrow, actually, your thought was one of the better thoughts I've heard all day today. I appreciate it. It is the gentleman's time, the ranking member's time. Thank you.
Please restore my time if you would. Let me come to you, Dr.
We will
Levine, on
restore
that.
your time.
The broken windows hypothesis is that if you allow people to get away with a crime at a certain level, and you send them the message it's okay, then they will go out and commit other crimes and more serious crimes. And that's what I think we're seeing here. What do you think, and I know you haven't written a paper on this because I looked at your extensive scholarship, but what do you think about the proposition, well, that there are political crimes and we can forgive all of those, and those people will not take it as a permission slip to go out and commit other crimes? Does that seem right?
No, sir, it doesn't, although I'm so tempted to geek out on what broken windows really was, according to George Kelling and James Q. Wilson. George Kelling was on faculty at the Rutgers School of Criminal Justice for years, and it wasn't about enforcement. It was really about how visible signs of disarray and disorder can send a signal that places are vulnerable for crime. And fixing those broken windows. It wasn't about
Which is why I was
arresting
pointing out we had
people
millions of
left and
dollars
right.
of broken windows here in addition to all of the
Yes.
bloodshed and the people.
Time has expired.
I yield back.
What you're seeing in this exchange is not just another heated moment in Congress. This is Jamie Raskin trying to force a conversation that much of Washington is determined to avoid. He walks into this hearing knowing exactly what the majority wants to do. Talk about crime in the abstract. Talk about cities as if they're war zones. Talk about law enforcement without talking about accountability. But the moment Raskin brings up the plaque honoring the officers who defended the Capitol on January 6th, the plaque that Congress itself voted into law 2 years ago but still hasn't been installed, everything shifts. Because suddenly, this isn't about crime out there, it's about responsibility right here. Raskin uses that plaque as a litmus test, a simple yes or no. Should the speaker follow the law and put it up? Every witness says yes. Not one person hesitates. And that's important, not because of the plaque itself, but because it reveals something. Even the people brought in to testify about crime recognize that honoring those officers shouldn't be controversial. Yet politically, it is. And that contradiction sets the stage for everything that comes next. The second Raskin pivots to pardons, he touches the nerve the panel hoped he'd ignore. Because if you're going to talk about crime, if you're going to talk about consequences, then you cannot pretend the presidential pardon power hasn't been used to shield people who are not only unrepentant, but in some cases even more dangerous after being pardoned. Raskin cites a woman who threatened to shoot FBI agents investigating her possible involvement in January 6th. Pardoned. He cites another who was arrested with a small arsenal, 6 firearms, nearly 5,000 rounds of ammunition, also pardoned. And what he's doing here is critical. He's connecting individual stories to a larger pattern, a pattern of impunity that fuels more crime, not less. When he brings up the broken windows theory, he's not doing it casually. He knows exactly what he's doing. Broken windows was always rooted in this idea. When you signal that certain behavior has no consequences, you create conditions for more serious offenses. And he turns that logic back onto the witnesses, onto the administration, onto the political class. Because if broken windows applies to minor vandalism, why wouldn't it apply to political violence? Why wouldn't it apply to the people who smashed their way into the Capitol and then walked out with pardons and applause? The former NYPD inspector tries to sidestep the question by pivoting back to street crime, as if the fear people feel in their neighborhoods has nothing to do with political leaders sending a message that certain crimes, committed by certain people, don't count. And that's when Raskin cuts in. He reclaims his time not just because the witness wandered, but because avoiding the question is the point. The witness understands exactly what Raskin is doing, and he doesn't want to engage with it. Because engaging with it means acknowledging that broken windows applies upward too. It means admitting that when you excuse political violence, you legitimize the idea that the law only matters when it's convenient. And here's the deeper layer. Political crime is still crime. Political violence is still violence. the impact still lands on real people, real communities, and real institutions. What Raskin is exposing is a hierarchy of accountability, one where ordinary people face the full weight of the law, but those who align themselves with a certain political project can commit crimes, get pardoned, reoffend, and still be shielded by the rhetoric of victimhood. That's the heart of this exchange. It's not about one witness. It's not about one theory. It's about the uncomfortable truth that when the government itself decides which crimes matter and which don't, it stops being about safety. It becomes about power. And Raskin is forcing the witnesses and the public to confront that difference. And this is why hearings like this matter. Because the public narrative about crime has been reduced to talking points about cities, disorder, and policing. But accountability doesn't just flow downward, it must also flow upward. You cannot build a safer society when people see that crimes committed in the name of politics are excused while everyday offenses are prosecuted to the fullest. That double standard doesn't just erode trust, it encourages exactly the kind of chaos broken windows theory warns about. If we want genuine public safety, it starts with consistency. Consequences must apply across the board, whether the person breaking the law is a teenager on a street corner or a grown adult storming the nation's capital with zip ties and bear spray. The moment you pick and choose who the law applies to, you no longer have law. You have loyalty tests. This is why Raskin's voice cuts through so sharply in this hearing. He's not fighting for a talking point. He's fighting for a principle, that the rule of law cannot survive selective enforcement, that democracy cannot survive if political violence is rewarded, that real safety is built on fairness, not fear. If you're watching this and you want more deep dives like this, more context, more explanation, more clarity behind the noise, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to Left Lens. Share it so others can understand what's really happening beneath the surface. Because these hearings aren't just theater, they are windows into the direction this country is heading. And the more people who see the full picture, the harder it becomes for power to hide behind distraction. Let's keep going, let's keep digging, and let's keep making sense of the moments that shape our future, even when some would rather we look away.